So what does that word mean? Because when we hear the term taught, the terminology taught, so it is kind of unfamiliar to all the law students. So what does it mean by taught? So basically this is a word which is not originally an English word. This word basically derived from a Latin terminology, that is taught. So the Latin term is taught. And this word taught has derived from this word taught. So what is the meaning of tautum? Basically tautum means to twist, or it is a violation of law. Okay, and most of the legal English terms are derived from Latin phrases, French terms, etc. So tautum means to twist and violation of law, and from this very word tautum, the word taught has derived. Okay, and then what is basically taught means, if we define or if we try to get a meaning of taught, so taught is basically a breach of duty, and breach means violation. Okay, breach of duty, and that breach of duty must amounts to a civil wrong. Okay, so let's understand these two terms, what is a breach of duty and what is a civil wrong. Okay, so we have different types of wrongs. So in law there are basically two type of wrongs, and how this wrong is being caused. So we all of us, we know that we have right, along with a right we have duty. Okay, so for example, if you have right to drive on the road, then if you then on the other hand you have a duty to follow all the traffic rules. So when you have right to walk or drive or ride on the road, then you have to observe a duty. So right and duty are always come with one packet. So you can't segregate or you can't differentiate right from duty. Okay, so when you have a right, you have a duty. If you have a right to privacy, then you have a duty to respect others' privacy also. So this works like this. So how wrong is being caused? When your right is being violated, there is a wrong caused on behalf of yourself. When you are going to breach some other person's right, then you have a duty not to violate some others right. So you have a duty to observe. When you have omitted a duty, then also a wrong has happened. For example, you have right to ride on the road. So someone has breached some traffic rules, that's why some kind of accident has happened. So then your right is being breached or your right is being violated. When you have a right to ride on the road peacefully without any harm, so your rights is being violated. Okay, then come to the duty. So you have a duty to let others walk or let others ride on the road peacefully. So you breached a traffic duty, or you omitted a signal, or you breached some kind of things that an accident has occurred. So some other person's duty is being violated. So wrongs has been committed when some person's rights are being violated, or a person is going to breach a duty. That's it. Okay. Is it are you guys understood what I want to convey? Please give me a thumbs up. It will be all right. Fine. Okay. Let's then go to the second phrase, that is, it amounts to a civil wrong. And this one is the most important aspect of law of tort. So when we are talking about wrongs are of two types. One is criminal wrong and another one is civil wrong. Okay, just imagine you are walking on the road, somebody has come and slapped you. So what is it? It is a crime. Obviously, because you are being assaulted, or somebody has taken your stuffs without like taking your permission. So that person has committed theft against you. Somebody has extorted you on gunpoint that give your notes and all. That's why you have to deliver it because you want to save your personal life. So that is a kind of extortion. So all these things are criminal wrong. Even murder, rape, or there are various numbers of offenses or criminal wrongs are there. So when we talk about wrongs are of two types. And why we say that the theft, extortion, robbery, murder, rape, these are criminal wrong. Why we are saying this? Because in law, when the criminal wrong is occurred, yes, it might be occurred against one person, but the state would take the responsibility to give the justice. Okay, so in criminal cases, we don't go to approach a lawyer, or we are not going to investigate by ourselves. We are not involved. If my stuffs are being like taken away by any other person, then I have to go to the police station, file a FIR that my stuffs are being taken away or stolen. Please help me out. Then the police officer will come, investigate. Then he go to the after investigation is being completed, he go to the court, file a charge sheet, and then the process will start it. So I am not personally involved in any of the processes. Okay, so when crime or criminal wrong is being happened, that would be the investigation, the trial, everything is being done by the government by itself. The government have machineries, government have organizations, government have institutions who are being investigated, tried, and give me justice by punishing that wrongdoer or the criminal or the accused person, anything we can say. But how civil wrong is different from other? Imagine one more thing. You have a property, okay, in Bhubaneswar, and nowadays these are very common stuff. You have a property in Bhubaneswar. After like registering, making register on that property, after 1 year, you got to know that some other person is illegally making um, a house or a building on your property. So what will you do? Do you go to the police for FIR? No, you cannot, because that is not a criminal wrong. That is a civil wrong. So any civil, even you want to divorce your wife, so you by yourself have to go to the court and file a divorce petition. You don't need to go to the police to say that I want to divorce my wife. Okay, so in civil cases, you need to take all the actions by yourself, by expending your money. So the state or the authority will not help you out. But in criminal wrong, this can be done. And one more thing which differentiates the wrongs between criminal and civil, there is the basic thing that in criminal wrongs, if the accused person or if the criminal is held guilty, then he would get punishment or fine. Okay, but in civil wrong, in case of civil wrong, there is no like instance of punishment or fine. There is only one thing, that is compensation. The criminal would, the wrongdoer would subject to compensation. Whatever loss you have bothered, you have bear by the act of that wrongdoer, that person is going to compensate you. That's it. So most of the cases, people like to go for a remedy in civil wrong rather than in criminal wrong. Because if someone broke my vehicle, so there are many cases where both civil action and criminal action can be taken. So someone broke your bike, for example. Okay, so if you go for mischief, there is an offense called mischief, that someone destroyed your property. Okay, if you go for an FIR, FIR that someone has broke your bike and you want to yes, of course, you do not know the offense, name of the offense, but you want to go to the police and file an FIR. Then the investigation will start it, and in the end, it will be the result is that mischief has happened to your property. So that person would get some punishment. Maybe it is 1.5 year, or there may be some fine. But if civil wrong you approach about that breaking of your bike, then whatever loss you have bothered or bear, that would be compensated to you, and that would done by the court. You don't need to finalize that how much I have to get. Normally people pray in their prayings that all this loss I have occurred, I want 50,000 or 1 lakh as compensation. Even for the suffering, the mental or physical suffering, you can also ask for compensation. So where we are, that it is that breach of duty must amounts to civil wrong. So only when we can include certain things or certain breach of duty to law of tort, when the result amounted from that breach of duty indicate shall indicate to civil wrong. So for criminal offences, there is no provision in law of tort for compensation. Okay, in criminal cases, we have to ask.
Yeah, yes, Sudipta, I had a question. So as you said that the difference between civil and criminal law, can there be something that lies in the intersection of civil and criminal law? Take for example, you can the DUI, driving under influence of alcohol. So if you see that this particular act can come within both the purview of the civil as well as criminal wrong. So in those cases, what will be the extent of tort?
What will be the extent of tort? Okay.
Yes, it will be coming under tort or not?
Yeah, it will. Okay. So there are many cases where both of the action can be taken. Okay, you are talking about wrong and right. There is another thing, defamation. You might know that defamation, you can take a criminal action or you can take a civil action. Okay, the choice is all yours. Sometimes people
Mm.
can even go for both. Okay,
Okay, right,
even
right.
you can go for both. There is no limitations. That depends upon the judge. If you prove your case in the court completely, that depends upon the judge what recourse he can give you. Okay, but both also can be taken. There is no limitation in it.
Right, right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we only include those breach of duty into tort which amounts to a civil wrong. There is no recourse for criminal wrong, because for criminal actions or criminal wrongs, we have another portion. We have Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. We had IPC before. Okay, so all these branches, we have Code of Criminal Procedure. So all these branches are governed by these laws, the criminal law branch. So tort is a kind of or a portion of civil law only. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so this is the meaning of tort. Then the point is, in tort there are certain terminologies which we want to understand. So who commits a breach of duty? That person is told as tortfeasor or wrongdoer. Any person who has committed any tort, that person is called as tortfeasor or wrongdoer. Okay, and the wrongful act which breaches someone's duty, that is called as wrongful act or a kind of omission by the wrongdoer. or that tortious, even we can say that this is a tortious act. Okay. Okay, and the liability which has arisen from that tortious act is called as tortious liability. Like in case of crime, we say that criminal liability. This person has some criminal liability. Why? Because he has committed a crime. Like this, in tort, we can say that the liability is kind of tortious, and the liability which is arises. Okay, and what is the object of the law of tort? The object is to compensate the victim. Because if the law of tort believes in the fact that if we are like punishing a person or extracting fine from a person, that does not making any benefit to the victim or the person who has suffered any kind of loss. My bike is broken, but that person was in jail for 1 year. So does that make any sense to my bike, or whether that helps me financially? No, that is a moral satisfaction that justice is being served, that person is in jail. But the financial loss which I have occurred, that would not be fulfilled or satisfied. So that's why the object of law of tort to compensate the victim. That's okay. And the first reported case of law of tort, that is Bolton versus Hurty. We will discuss it when we discuss about the historical evolution of law of tort. Let's keep this aside. Then the definition. Okay. So for your information, law of tort is not a law which is evolved in India. It has come to India with the British administration of justice system. As all the laws have come from England, law of tort is also a kind of law which has come through the Britishers, and in India it has also some kind of developments in like classes forward we will go to discuss about that. But this kind of law is being brought by the Britishers. So these have two important definitions by Winfield and Salmon, and the definitions are quite much similar, but the languages are kind of different. Okay, so Salmon defined it. First thing is the civil wrong. This is the only thing which got debated, that it is a civil wrong, and it has a remedy, and the remedy is what? On liquidated damages. I will make it understand after some time, but what is on liquidated damages? On liquidated damages is a kind of compensation which is not determined before. For example, if it is somewhere being determined that if someone's bike is got broken, that person will take 50,000 of compensation. If someone's hand is broken, then that person will take 1 lakh of compensation. That will be treated as liquidated damages. So liquidated damages is a kind of damage which is pre-decided. Whether it is retained somewhere, whether it is accumulated by the authorities, that is liquidated damages. Okay. Unliquidated damages means the damages or the compensation which are not pre-decided. It will be decided by the scenario of each case. If in my case, for my broken bike, if the court awarded me rupees 50,000 as compensation, in some other case, at the same scenario, breaking of his bike, the court can grant him 1 lakh of compensation. So that not only depends upon the financial loss, also it depends upon the circumstances. Maybe I can my financial condition is bit good that I could bother that. But if someone is depending on the bike, for example, he is a delivery boy and his bike is got broken, that's why he has no job right now. So for that also there are provision for compensation. So on liquidated damages, it depends on place to place. We can't accumulate that in this case if this much compensation is granted, other case that might be some kind of difference. This is not determined, and which is not exclusively the breach of contract or breach of trust. This is some important thing. I will discuss it. Even Winfield's definition is also pretty much similar to Salmon. He said that it arises from breach of a duty, which I have explained, and it is primarily that duty is primarily fixed by law, because there is no place for moral duty. Okay, moral duty means you have a moral duty to visit to the temple, to like give money to a beggar. These are your moral duties. So if you are not going to pay any beggar, no court, no law will punish you, because that duty needs to be primarily fixed by law or made by law or sanctioned by law, like our fundamental duties. Sorry, fundamental duties are not punishable. For example, don't breach some others privacy, don't breach some others reputation. You should not write or say any defamatory about any other person. That is your duty, which is fixed by law. If you are not obeying that duty, if you have defamed someone through words, through any written format, you can be entitled to give compensation to that person to whom you have defamed. And that duty towards the person is generally its breach. So the duty is being breached and it is redressable by, again, for all liquidated damages. So these are some important definitions of law of tort by Salmon and Winfield. But in India, the definition of law of tort, which is not properly provided by, or there are various numerous definitions of law of tort, but in India, under the Limitations Act 1963, section 2, subsection M, the law of torts definition is being provided. So here the definition is provided that tort means there is a civil wrong which is not exclusively the breach of contract or the breach of trust. So it is being provided that it is not a breach of contract or breach of trust. That is that I am going to explain now. Again, in a case, 1994 case, Supreme Court has defined what is the definition of tort. So this case is Jayalakshmi Salt Works versus State of Gujarat. In this particular case, Supreme Court has defined law of tort, and how, and the definition is so much comprehensive and it is complete that there is no other things we can add in the definition. So the definition, I want to divide those definition into three parts. The first part of the definition is that law of tort is a civil wrong. Okay, so what is a civil wrong? I have explained. So in case of civil wrong, what we basically do, that we will go for a civil proceeding. Okay, so in India, so for criminal wrong, there is other proceeding. For civil wrong, there is other proceeding. So for criminal wrong, you have to go to the police, the investigation will started, then the charge sheet is being submitted, the trial begins. After the trial, there is a judgment and the authorities is going to execute the judgment, whether it is a punishment, death sentence, fine, etc., etc. But in case of civil wrong, you have to go through a civil proceeding. And how a civil proceeding is different from criminal proceeding? In case of civil proceeding, you have to approach a lawyer by yourself. Okay, so who have any civil practice expertise, that some of my civil rights are being breached or violated, I want to take an action. So this process you have to from beginning to end, you have to do by yourself. Sometimes when the people who want to take some civil action are not financially stable, there are provisions you can provide a lawyer or an advocate by to yourself by free, but for that also you have to go through a lot of process. So basically civil proceeding you have to involve by yourself. You have to arrange an advocate or lawyer on your behalf, and the whole proceeding you have to lead by yourself. Okay, so for civil wrong you have to go for a civil proceeding. And what is the compensation, sorry, what is the remedy over here? The remedy is not punishment or fine, the remedy is compensation. And the compensation is going to be on liquidated damages. And one more thing I have forgotten to say, there are two terms. One is damage, and another term is damages. So damages is not the plural form of damage. Damage means loss. Damages means compensation. In law of tort, these two words have this meaning. Damage means the loss, the injury which you have suffered, and damages means the compensation. So here the remedy is on liquidated damages. On liquidated means which is not determined before. Okay. Then the second part of this definition is that breach of duty. Okay, and that breach of duty is not exclusively a breach of contract or a breach of trust. So we here got two terms. One is breach of contract, another one is breach of trust. Okay, so this is not exclusive. Okay, so what is that breach of contract and what is that breach of trust? Okay, so breach of contract basically when two people has a contract with each other. Okay, for example, I have a I am manufacturing something. So there is a person called A. I and A has a contract. I will deliver him 50 bags of the product which I am manufacturing, and A will pay me 1 lakh. So this is the contract between us. So according to contract, I delivered 50 bags of the product to A, but A has not paid me. So here what happened? There is a breach of contract. So breach of contract when happens? When any of the parties fails to perform the contract, then breach of contract happens. And why breach of contract is not included in the law of tort or in the definition of law of tort? Because breach of contract, there is other provision. We have the Contract Act 1972. And under the Contract Act, there are specific provisions. If the contract is being breached, what recourse you can take in. There is another act called the Specific Relief Act. Okay, under that act also 1962, under that act also there are provisions. If the contract is being breached, what recourse or what remedy can be provided to the party who has suffered loss. So that's why in law of tort that breach of contract is not included. So what is breach of contract? When any of the parties fails to perform the contract. And where it is provided under section 73 of Indian Contract Act. And the how the breach is being how the injury or the breach which is being suffered by the person, how it can be compensated. The compensation provision of breach of contract is provided under section 75 of Indian Contract Act. Okay, so that's why law of tort has not included that breach of contract. There is another act also, the Specific Relief Act 1963. this act has also a lot of remedial provisions how you can meet the breach of contract or how you can remediate the breach of contract. Okay, so breach of contract is done. So now the point, breach of trust. Okay, what is breach of trust? So this term is very familiar, very most used term that you breached my trust and that. But in law, breach of trust does not mean you trusted someone and he breached your trust. That is not the actual term. Breach of trust is when you entrusted a person with a lot of responsibility and that person has not meet that responsibility or that person is failed to fulfill all such responsibilities. For example, there is an institution or temple or a trust is being made and a person is being appointed as a trustee. So the trustee's duty is to take care of the property of the trust. For example, the trust has a farmhouse, a company, anything, an institution, college, anything. So that trustee has some responsibility to take care of that property or trust or the trust property, whatever the property the trust holds. But if the person done anything like cheated the trust or taken away the property of the trust, has not properly carry forward the duty of doing all the duties or responsibility which is vested upon that person, so that is breach of trust. Okay, so it is a kind of failure to act responsibly for someone or the person who is appointed as a trustee, and the trustee needs to be entrusted with some duties. So why even the breach of trust, why it is being excluded? Because for trust we have other provisions where this kind of matters can be addressed. So like first I have to write that it is a failure to act responsibly. Okay, so there is a provision under section 92 of Code of Civil Procedure 1908 where we can address the matters relating to breach of trust. So that's why it is not included in the law term. And the third part of the definition is how the damage is being redressed. Okay, so the damage which is caused by the wrongful civil act or the civil wrong can be redressable by an action for unliquidated damage or unliquidated damages, which means the sum of money which cannot be assessed by the fixed formula. There is no fixed formula because for every instance the situation or the circumstances are different, like I told. Okay.
What about the insurance policy? Like the amount is fixed, but not up to, they are saying like up to 3 lakhs, up to 5 lakhs, but the amount is not fixed.
Mhm.
So what about this? Like, is this unliquidated or liquidated?
Actually, insurance is not a kind of law which relating to law of tort, first of all. But the
Okay.
damages or the compensation which the insurance company gave, that is liquidated damages, sorry. Because before you have an agreement with them that if such things happen, so I will get this much amount. Okay.
Yes.
And they also have a fixed formula to accumulate how much money they need to give you in such circumstances. Okay, So these damages are always liquidated, but in law of tort, the damages are not liquidated. It is unliquidated. The judge will decide after getting the information, the circumstances, in what circumstances you have like taken that damage, that injury, everything is being calculated. Okay, and there is no fixed formula. As
Yes.
I told, if my bike is broken and yours is also broken, okay, so that will not be like, first of all, the bike, the company, how much the bike costs, these are some criteria. Along with that, in what circumstances the bike is being broken. Okay, so the circumstances is the main criteria to determine the damages. So in law of tort, the circumstances may be similar, but the damages are different because it has been calculated from the circumstances. Understood?
Understood. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, please. Okay, shall I proceed? Or is
Yes,
there any?
yes. Yes, yes. Proceed.
Then the second thing, also the last part of the definition is that law of tort can be redressable by an action for all liquidated damages. Because whatever loss as a the victim I have suffered, it can be calculated, or it can be compensated or paid or satisfied through an unliquidated damage. So last is, it is redressable redressable and action for a sum of money Okay, so this is the definition which is provided by the Supreme Court of India in Jai Lakshmi Salt Works versus State of Gujarat. And this is the most complete and most comprehensive definition of law of tort till date. Okay, so next to the next concept, or to the next heading, that is characteristics of law of tort. Okay, so there are 5 characteristics of law of tort. So let's discuss it one by one. First, it is a civil wrong. Okay, why it is a civil wrong? Again, because the injured party or the victim, that party institutes a civil proceeding against the wrongdoer or the tortfeasor, and the plaintiff or the victim, uh, that victim is compensated by the court, and the compensation is not punishment. The compensation is on liquidated damages. Mostly this is a price or a money, kind of money or an amount of money which is being paid by the wrongdoer to the plaintiff or to the victim. That's why it is a civil wrong. Okay. Let's discuss it, then we will write. Second characteristics or second feature of law of tort, that it is a right in rem. So let's understand what is right in rem and what is its opposite, right in personam. So we have a lot of types of rights. There is one more category, that rights can be right in rem. Another one is right in personam. Okay, so the rights which can be exercised against the whole world, that right is called as right in rem. like your right to live, okay, right to food. So if any person is violating your right to live or right to privacy or right to food, or right to have food, right to have a clean environment, you can raise an action against that person. So this is a kind of right in rem. So right in rem basically is a right which is vested on someone, and that can be exercised against the whole world. So if I am going to break your bike, you can take an action against myself. If Mr. A breaks your bike, you can take an action against Mr. A. If any person in this world breaks your bike, you can take a, or you can initiate a civil action against that person. So law of tort is a right in rem. Whoever violates your right or whoever breached a duty against you, you can take an action against that person. So how right in personam acts? Right in personam is a kind of right which is only available against some person, like contract. In contract, if your contract is being breached, you can only initiate an action against the person who has breached your contract. You have no right to initiate any other kind of action against any other person, because you have no contract with that other person. You have, if you have contract with A has breached your contract, you will take an action against A only. So this is right in personam. Like in marital cases also, in marital cases, if your marriage is being there is any kind of disturbances, you want to take the divorce, so you can only file the divorce against your spouse, not against any other person. So that is a right in person. So law of tort is a right in rem. It is available against the whole world. Any person in this world has breached your right or have done anything which is make or which bring you some kind of loss or damage, you can file a case against that person or take an action against that person. So it is a right in rem. It is available against the whole world. Third point is law of tort. In law of tort, whatever right is being provided to you, those rights are fixed by law. Okay. Again, one more differentiation of rights. There are two other categories of rights also. One is legal rights. One is moral rights. Okay. So what are legal rights? What are moral rights? As I explained before also, again I am explaining this. Legal rights is the rights which are legally fixed or which is fixed by law. Those are legal rights. And what are the moral rights? Moral rights means the rights which are morally correct. For example, to offer puja in the temple, to give money to the beggar, to give food who is hungry, to give water to someone who is thirsty. All these things are moral rights. If you are not going to pay anything to a beggar, no case will be instituted, no action will be instituted against you. But to ride on the left side of the road, it is not a moral right. So if you are walking on the right side or left side, that doesn't matter. This is not moral. Or if you are walking on the right side, this is not also immoral. But that is a legal right. If you are walking on the right side, then, or you are riding on the right side of the road, then an action can be taken against you. So there are two kinds of rights. So for moral rights, there are no punishment or compensation. But if you are breaching, or if you are breaching someone else's legal right, you will be entitled to compensation or you will be entitled to punishment if this is a criminal offense. So basically, law of tort is a right which is fixed by law or which is basically legal rights. For moral rights, there is no place for law of tort. Okay, then the remedy. The remedy is like damages or compensation, which is unliquidated. Along with compensation, some other remedies are also provided in the law of tort. So first is, one is compensation. Okay. Second is specific restitution. I'm explaining what is it. Thirdly, it is injunction. So what is compensation we have explained, but we have understood. What is specific restitution of property? Restitution is basically a like right of yours. If your property, for example, take an example, you have a book, you have lent that book to your friend. Okay, very expensive book, very rare collection book. You have lent that book someone, that is Mr. X. So you have a exchange. You have an exchange of word with Mr. X that that person will give that book to you after 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or maximum 10 days. But now that person is not giving back to you your book, and one more thing that person has did, he misappropriated your books to be his property. So now he is claiming that that particular book belongs to him, and he has written his name on that particular book, and now he is denying to return that book to you. So if such things has happened, so you have a specific remedy that is called restitution of property. So you simply go to the court, you present evidences before the court that this property belongs to me. Then the court will pass an order of restitution of property. The court shall order that particular person, that Mr. X, please return that book to Mr. A or anything, whatever your name is, please return that book to that victim or to the plaintiff. So that is called restitution of property. So this restitution of property can be taken as a remedy for both movable and immovable property. Movable property are the properties which can be movable from one place to another place, like our book, mobile phone, etc. And immovable property is what? Like houses, property, building, or anything which cannot be movable according to us. So this kind of remedy can be asked for both specific for both movable and immovable property. Then the third thing is injunction. So to understand injunction, let's imagine something. Okay, so you have a house and a person regularly coming near to your house, and he throwing garbages in front of your gate or in front of your walls. That person is throwing garbages. You have said that person or requested that person not to do that, but that person is not listening to you and he is continuously doing that. So what has your remedy over here? That is injunction. You basically go to the court and request to the court that request to the court to request that person for not doing this particular act. And this request, after that request, the order which the court passed to that person not to throw not to throw garbage in front of your gate or door, that order is called injunction. Even in case of injunction, there are various types of injunction. There are a type of injunction called prohibitory injunction. Prohibitory injunction is then passed when the court wants to order a particular person not to do anything, like not to throw the garbages. That is prohibitory injunction. Another injunction type of injunction is mandatory injunction. When mandatory injunction is when passed, if someone is vested with some duties, but that person is not doing the duties. For example, municipality has a duty to collect all the garbages and throw it somewhere else. But in your lane, the municipality vehicle is not coming for collecting garbages. So if you have taken action about this, that municipality vehicle is not coming and not collecting garbages in our area or locality, the court will pass a mandatory injunction, and a order or stricture shall be issued in favor of the municipality that you have to go to that particular place or locality and collect all the garbages. So when the injunction is being passed for not doing a particular thing, that is prohibitory injunction. When an order or an injunction is passed to do a particular thing, that is mandatory injunction. Okay, so these are the remedies of law of tort. Okay, so these are kind of characteristics which are law of tort. Okay, so any doubt, any question?